Welcome back to Within Tolerance. This is episode 29, and I'm joined today. It's just us two, and we're going to be talking about a couple different things here. So I guess, Dylan, let's start off with you. You say that, let's see, heat sinks.
Yeah. So I had some lessons learned this last week. We had some parts we were making for a customer that were made out of pre-extruded heat sink material. And so we had to cut them to length, put some counterbores in them, stuff like that. And a couple lessons I learned. So usually I'm so careful with material that is given to me by the customer. But this stuff, I cut it in our chop saw, and it cut so well. Like it's the fins were maybe a couple hundred thou tall, and really the space between them is not that much. So it's not as bad as some heat sink material that I've machined before. And so, usually I would be really careful and like do a test cut or something. And this time I was like, oh, I totally got this, and loaded up my first part. And I was only using like a 3/16 to cut the ends to size, and was taking maybe, I don't know, 50 thou off or something.
Okay.
And it goes through and cuts off both sides, and it sounds horrible. And I'm like, oh no. And I turn off the coolant and look real quick, and then like every single fin on both sides is bent.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so we ended up, thankfully it's like an off-the-shelf heatsink part, so I just ordered some off of DigiKey, and they'll be here. Well, I already have one of them, and then I've got another one that I need to replace. But so it lessons learned were I had pieces that I had because the piece comes in at like 12 inches, I think, or something in metric, and I had to cut it down to 7 inches, just over 7 inches. And so I had all these spare little pieces that I had to cut off. I really should have taken one of those, done a test cut, not been cocky, like I know better, and still just, was like, oh, this is an easy job, I'll knock it out of the park, get it done really quick and drop it off. Because it was real quick turnaround too. Like we got the heat sinks on like Wednesday, I think, or maybe Thursday, and then they needed 10 of them by Friday morning. So anyway, that was one lesson learned. And the other one was, if you're machining heat sink material that is already a heat sink, like you're not putting the grooves in it, one thing that I found, the process that ended up being very reliable was I did a bunch of step downs on the sides because they were unsupported and they just can't take that radial load. And so I can't remember what my exact step down was, but I went from one full pass with the 3/16 to maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 passes, something like that. And then the counterbores that I had to do, same thing. Like on the test part, I was going in there, helixing down, and then adaptive clearing it out. And like I was only taking 10 or 20 radially, which I thought would be enough to not bend the fins. But even then, it was just too much radial load and too much force on that, really thin cross section. And so that was bending them too. So what I ended up doing is I think they were, I don't know, something like a 1/2 inch or 400 thou diameter. And so I just helixed down to size and to depth all in one pass with a 3/8 end mill, and putting that axial load down through the fins stabilized them and made sure that they didn't, they still sounded kind of terrible. I sent you that video, but it was not nearly as bad as it could have been.
Yeah.
So those were some good lessons learned. I figured I'd share it here because you never know when you're going to be machining heatsink material. I have done some in the past that was like very large spacing between the fins, and so we kind of dealt with it a different way. We made little bucks to fit in between the fins, but they were much bigger fins and much more spaced out. These, if I had made little bucks to fit in between each one, it would have been, 60 pieces that I would have had to put into every single part.
Oh, geez. So that was my other question: is how big are these heat sinks?
Well, they were like I said, 7 in one direction and 4 or 5 in the other, I think.
But like, are they 5 inches long? Are they big or small?
Well, they were 7 inches long when they finished. Yeah. So it was a good lesson. Like I said, I wanted to share it here because some of our listeners might end up doing stuff like that at some point, and it definitely wasn't difficult, but it was just something after I screwed up that first one, I was like, oh, damn it. Let me take a step back, regroup, really think about the actual cutting forces that are going on here, and then start over. And once I did that, it worked out fine.
Yeah, it's one of those that you think, oh, I can just apply normal techniques and whatnot to approach this, but then it's like, nope, didn't like that. Okay,
Yeah, well, and like I was very not nervous, but I knew that I was going to have problems when I first saw them. And then when I cut them on my saw, they cut so nicely and with such little vibration that I was like, oh, maybe I'm completely wrong. Let's just try normal stuff. And nowhere, what I realized thinking back later is that my saw spins away from me towards the part. And so I was actually still applying that axial load down through the fins when I was cutting it on my saw. And I just wasn't really thinking that through until after I had already bent all of those fins on that one part.
oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So just because it seemed to imply that they were more rigid than I thought, they were not.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but yeah, lesson learned. It's still, the stock wasn't that expensive, so I'm glad that I could find it on DigiKey. It was in stock. I got one of the pieces today, and another one will show up I think tomorrow, and then I'll be done.
Do you buy it by like the foot?
You buy it by the piece. Like this company sells them as like a single part number,
Okay.
and so you just buy it by the piece, and then on these ones I'm trimming it down to like 100,000 over nominal, and then cutting them. I'm actually putting them in jaws that are less wide than they are, and then using the probe to find the exact center.
Gotcha. Lucky you with a probe.
Yeah, it's definitely changed a lot of the ways that we use. Like I use a lot less work stops now,
Oh, I
just
bet.
because like if it's in hard jaws, I just use a scale and set it roughly half an inch from the edge of the vise, and then just have all my probing and fusion and take care of it.
So that was another question I was going to ask you is with probing, are you now to the point where you're posting it out of Fusion, reliably and you're comfortable with it?
Yeah, definitely. I'll use it not every time. If I'm using soft jaws, unless I have to relocate to a counterbore or something, like there's no there's no real reason to use it.
Yeah,
But if I'm in hard jaws for op two, or if I have something like that, like the heatsink material, yeah, I post out no problem.
that's awesome.
It's super nice and like so dead simple that I feel like in the past probing has been a lot more difficult to kind of get through. Like you had to handwrite cycles or have specific posts or a real high level cam system, and it's so easy.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So those were my lessons for the week. What about you? I think everybody, or at least everybody that follows you, has been seeing your mold machining saga here.
Yeah.
But let's hear about lessons learned, how everything went, all the pieces you had to make. There's a big story there, I think. So let's hear about it.
Yeah, so long story short, I have my Boy 22, which is my larger injection molding machine, and I've never made a mold for that machine. I've always wanted to, and so I kind of have over the years I designed things and kind of came up with concepts. And then recently I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this because if you remember earlier, or let's see, late last year, I was having to replace the seals on the machine itself, and I didn't really have a valid way to test those seals if they actually were replaced properly, if they were leaking or anything, because I had no mold to put in my machine and actually like cycle and test. So that was another kind of reason I wanted to do this was okay, not only can I test my skills in making molds, but I can double check that my machine works and um, go even further down that hole, I'm looking at getting another production mold made for a Lego part. So I kind of need to know, like, okay, can I run these parts myself, or do I need to send the mold to my buddy 3 hours away from me to run the parts? So that was kind of like all the reasons why I was doing this. And so I finished designing the mold and I was just cranking out all the parts. And there's a lot of components to molds. And I have a total new respect for tool makers because I'm just making like an aluminum mold base. Everything's pretty much aluminum. There's very little steel parts. And, I kind of built the mold and designed it to have loose tolerances. I could, thickness wise on things. I mean, if I'm off by a thou or two, it's not a big deal. Um, and so it's one of those things where, these guys that are holding tenths on steel molds, I just have a huge respect for. And so I made the mold, and I've actually been talking a lot to Adam, the machinist. So once again, Adam, thank you for all your help, because he's done a little bit of injection molding, and he was giving me some pointers. Because basically, the concept is you have a mold base, and in that base, you have two mold inserts, which actually have the cavities to them for the part. And so the mold base is basically universal. So I'll never have to remake that. All I have to remake is the two little inserts that are just 2.5 inch square aluminum, and that's kind of my standard for my other machine. So this way I can basically just make these inserts, put them into this mold base, and then run this on this machine actual production, with ejector pins, and basically set it and forget it and come back with a bucket full of parts. That's the idea.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you weren't using your boy for production stuff.
Yeah, I've been using my smaller machine where it's all I have to manually open the mold and take out the part, which I mean, I could still do probably close to, I don't know, 5 to 700 parts an hour. I mean, it's pretty quick, but it's like you have to be there. Um, and that's no
Right.
fun. So, and especially on the higher volume stuff, it's like when I need thousands of something, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, I could stand there, but it's like, let's just set this up the right way. So I made the inserts. I got to do a post about this, but I actually cut the ejector pins to length in my mill, which is
Do you
a
use that
total.
5C collet block?
Yeah, and so that actually worked out really well. I was able to um, hold the overall length of those pins to within a thou, and I was just like, that's more than I'm happy with that all day long. So
Awesome.
that worked out great. And then everything, honestly, it was funny because, long story short, it didn't work first time, which wasn't surprising to me. But then I was kind of bummed. I'm like, okay, it didn't work. Like, you expect it to work. But then I wrote out on piece of paper all the things that I need to fix, and there's only like four problems, and I wrote down all the solutions to fix those problems, and like I mean, probably not tonight because I don't want to get too crazy, but tomorrow morning I'll be able to test it again, and I'm pretty confident I'll be good to go. So, like, it was just really helpful to break it down and write the things out. Like, one of the issues I was having was mold alignment. The actual two mold inserts weren't lining up properly, and I wasn't happy with it. So, how do I fix that? Well, I have this list of things that I put in place that should fix it, and same with the other three issues. So, it was it's very rewarding, however, because I got parts that actually injected and whatnot. So it's like, okay, I know the machine works now. Like, everything's good. Now I just got to fine tune and be really picky about things, and I should be good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, even the picture you sent me of, I don't know, it must have been your third run or something. Those looked fantastic. So I'm surprised that you were even unhappy with those. I'm really looking forward to seeing the quality of parts that come out of there.
Yeah, I can like see it. I have this vision of like me switching the machine into full auto mode. It's called, where it just runs continuously until you tell it to stop, and like just having just this bin fill up with parts, and like perfect parts at that. So like this is my version of a Swiss lathe.
That's awesome. That's going to be super exciting, I'm sure.
Yeah. So,
That's great. And so, I mean, I saw you had some learning experiences along the way too.
yep.
You had to drill out a tap or something.
Oh, was that the more recent one? It was actually a reamer.
Oh no! So I guess you had the reamer too. So you had the reamer, and then you had the tap in like one of the bigger bases, I
Oh
think, right?
yeah.
So making your plates, and your fixturing for the boy machine, you had some issues both with a tap and a reamer. What happened there?
So one of the plates was just a spacer plate because my machine can only close so far, the two platens as they're called. So I made like a 2.25 inch spacer plate, and I had four like 5/16 tapped holes for socket head cap screws, and one of them, the tap broke is the first one, and that's because I was tapping it by hand, and it just, I'm pretty sure it went in crooked, and I just kept going. And I'm actually really shocked that I was able to break that tap with a small tap, not even a tap wrench, a tap handle. And I was shocked that I was able to break that like myself. I thought a big tap like that it'd be harder to do, but I guess not. So broke that, and I was like, you know what? This is dumb. I'm just gonna go for it. So I threw the tap into a collet holder, and I just, threw it into Fusion and tapped it in the machine, and just like butter. I mean, I just took it slow, like 250 RPMs, and it just did it, and I was done, and moved on with that problem. So that was good.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
and then the reamer happened last night. So it's a tapered reamer. I believe the tip of the reamer, so the first diameter is like 188 thou, so like 3/16. Then the back end is like 230 or something. So it tapers not much, but just enough. And so I pre-drilled it to like a 177 hole, and then I put this reamer in and I peck ream it, just because it's kind of like threading. As the deeper you go, your actual like surface area of the cut on the cutter is bigger. So last time on the first inserts I made, I pecked it at like 100 thou deep pecks, and this one, for whatever reason, it wasn't on a pecking cycle, and I was watching it run, and I should have stopped it, but I was like, you know what, it's going good so far. Then of course it broke, and so that was the last reamer I had, the only one I had. So just yesterday I ordered two off of MSC, did your little trick of the overnight upgrade, got them this afternoon and ran that like a couple hours ago, and now right now the machine's actually running the cavity work and should be done in like 3 hours.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah, so hopefully, like I said, I'm gonna try not to push things. I mean, I could do the op 2 of the mold, which is just deck the top hat, this counter bore, a couple drilled and tap holes, and I could assemble the mold and try it. But I'm just gonna finish the cavity work, turn my machine off, get sleep, and approach it slowly tomorrow morning. No reason to rush it. I actually made another mistake that I didn't talk about on Instagram, where my work coordinates were off just enough, and long story short, I had to modify some of the mold parts, but I was able to make it work. But yeah, I just got to take things slow, double check my work, and I should be good to go tomorrow. So
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing how that all turns out.
yeah, I'm really excited. It's funny, I was just talking through Instagram message to Adam, and he had a good idea for kind of how the mold alignment issues were. And I'll do a video and a post about this because it's kind of hard to explain, just in words. You kind of have to see it. But yeah, I'm pretty confident that everything should work. So I don't know. I'm really excited.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I like I said, I had zero idea that you weren't using your boy machine for all of these. I knew you were using your hand machine for some stuff, but I didn't realize like that's going to be such a big quality of life upgrade right there.
Oh yeah, and now I'm already like planning, like, okay, pretty much any new future product. I'm like, how can I first got to like fully test this process, not only on this one mold. This is kind of my thought process. If this one mold works, this insert that I made, um if that works, okay, great. I got to pick another one and try it. Maybe a different looking part, different layout, how many parts I can fit on it, all that stuff. I got to kind of play with it a little bit because I'm still in the trial phase. But once I nail everything down, I expect pretty much most of my guns and other accessories for Lego stuff will be going straight into that kind of universal mold base and on the boy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, you could batch out, a whole bunch of those plates and just be ready to run a mold whenever you wanted now too.
Yeah, that's the goal. And it's one of those things, it's like the little machine's great because, like I said, it's still pretty fast, but you have to be there. And if I can, you know, one problem I'm having, and I'm going to start doing, I want to do like a Kanban system. So like I have maybe like 30 or 40 different injection molded parts for Lego guys, probably more, but let's just say for talking purposes, 40. And so I have these bins that I keep stuff in for inventory. I want it to be to the point where if I run out of, let's say, one of these rifles for a Lego figure in this one bin, I want to know for a fact I have like a bag of, let's say, 100 of them in this other area, kind of like that breadcrumb system you've heard of.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
that seems to be fairly popular, and it seems like a good system to implement.
Yeah, so like, okay, I run out in this my main bin. Okay, I know I have more, but the second I go into that bag, I got to somehow make a note or like start production again to get that next 100 bag ready.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it's as easy as swapping over those subplates, though, or whatever you're calling them on your boy machine, it would be. It seems like it would be relatively easy compared to having to set up your other one.
Yeah, and it's just kind of nice cuz with the boy it's like, yeah, it takes a little more setup, but it's like I could run a couple thousand parts in a couple hours and not have to worry about restocking that part number for like a couple months versus maybe a month or a couple weeks.
Right. 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 I mean, how much
Um,
setup? Like once you have those, you know, the actual mold little sub pieces, how much setup do you have to do? Is it just changing the amount of plastic that's being extruded and clearing out the machine for whatever new color you're using?
for if it was a new color, yes, and then it should just be as simple as I just got to unscrew 4 cap screws for each mold insert. Um, just basically make sure the molds aligned up, change a couple machine settings, and I should be good. So I mean, realistically, way less than an hour, probably more like 10 to 20 minutes.
Oh, that's awesome. So I mean, you could restock, you know, 50 to 80% of your entire inventory in like, a day or two. It sounds like once you get all that stuff up and running.
Yeah, which is awesome. And another thing I'm excited about is, so I don't know how familiar you are, and then along with listeners are with injection molding, but you have a screw basically in the barrel that's heated, um, that pushes the plastic. And it also, if you're using colorant and like a neutral color, it'll actually mix the color. So for example, like what's a good example? Like frosting. When you're baking cookies, like sugar cookies, you have white frosting. How do you make it turn red? Well, you put in food dye. Then you just put one little drop and you mix it, and then all of a sudden it's all red, right?
Right.
So same thing. I start with this neutral, natural color material. It's like a white, and then I do some ratios and figure out the weight and percentage, how much, let's say, red I want, and it's like 3% of this colorant. It's not plastic, but it's like this. It's plastic, but it's not. I couldn't make parts out of just this. You have to mix it with the plastic, so it's like the coloring dye, and in the boy with that screw, I can turn that natural into a bunch of red. And so I can't do that in my smaller machine because it doesn't use a screw system. It just has an air cylinder with like a plunger. So there's no mixing effect. And I'm really excited because with this screw system, I have a bunch of these colorants that I've gotten as samples. So not only now can I restock all my products in their normal colors, but now I have like 10 colors that I can make all my products in. So that's just like that many more varieties for people to choose from.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is it similar to like a 3D printer where you have to run just some waste plastic through it to clear out whatever color you use last?
Yeah, it's pretty much whatever the barrel holds, you basically just have to clear that out. And that normally doesn't take that long, maybe like 5-10 minutes of just basically you're just purging it out. You can either inject it in parts and make cool swirled colors, which a lot of my customers love because that's how you can get like camo effects and stuff. If you swirl like a green and a black, you can get a cool swirl effect. Um, but otherwise you could just purge it out and you just get this like blob of plastic that you can just throw away, or if you had a grinder you could grind it up and just remelt it down and just repeat the cycle.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
So
Very cool.
yeah, I'm really stoked because that's a whole new world, and so far. A lot of people seem to be pretty excited with it, when I post on Instagram stories. So it's kind of cool to see people are just as anxious as I am.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I had zero idea how big of a deal this is going to be for you, but it was just cool to kind of follow along and see you, work through all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, in other news, you got a 3D printer, it looks like.
Yeah. I just decided I wanted to kind of get back into it, and so the Ender 3 Pro was on sale through their website, Creality, and so I picked that up, and then some filament and all that stuff, and so I'm just kind of going through and getting back into it.
So, how much was that printer?
On sale, it was, I want to say 204 or like 214, something like that, shipped.
Oh, wow, that's really cheap.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that's pretty much everything you need. It comes in like a big Lego kit, and I put it together in maybe half an hour, and then ran. There's like a few test prints that are on the micro SD card that comes with it. So I ran like a little dog model, and that came out great. There's a couple places with a little bit of layer shift, like real, not very noticeable, but still worth noting. But I got the tempered glass bed in today, so I'm going to hook that up and kind of get it a lot more leveled. I want to print a drop indicator mount for it to make it easier to level.
Okay.
Rather than using shims or paper. And then I think the plan is the initial plan was I was going to swap out the control board for this control board called the Duet Wi-Fi. That
Okay.
changes like the firmware that you're using, and it is like a pretty big surgery on the machine. But then today somebody who followed along my story messaged me, and there's another board that you can get, the SKR mini board, that's like $35, and it updates it from a 8-bit system to a 30-bit or 32-bit system. Gives you access to use an auto bed leveling sensor, a whole bunch of upgrades. So I might end up doing that actually, because even with the BL Touch like bed leveling sensor and this control board, it'll be half of what the Duet Wi-Fi board was.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So that's, I mean, right now it's printing great anyway. I left it overnight to print. I don't know, I printed 6 or 7 hours last night, printing up some cable tracks for some of the stuff. So yeah, it's been great. There's been some great listeners, and actually I don't know if they listen. Well, I know. So like Rob Lockwood was the one who suggested I print out the cable tracks. He said that the cables can kind of pull the bed out of level. And then I've been talking with Colin from Dub Manufacturing, and he gave me his Prusa Slicer settings because I asked him for him just because I had zero experience with this printer yet, and I just wanted to hit the ground running.
So, going forward, what are you going to use this for?
A little bit of shop stuff, a little bit of home stuff. So I the first thing I'm going to print for the shop is collet storage. Like I've been hating the way that we store collets for a while. It's kind of, all of our ER16s came in like a little wooden box, like the 2 sets that we have of them, and so those were okay. And then I printed kind of like a crappy ER16, I don't know, 6 or 8 station one on the printer bot simple metal that I have, but that thing doesn't have a heated bed, so it kind of warped and it wasn't great quality. And it's done its job, but like I just want some nicer looking, kind of holistic, like everything looks the same, everything fits together, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And right now I don't have anything, like all of my ER32 collets are just sitting in Kaizen foam that I cut out. And so I want to make like a ER32 one and an SK10 and SK16 and make them all look the same and all fit together, and just kind of upgrade that, and then do some custom bin storage, because like we've got a bunch of the shallower bins, but sometimes it's kind of hard to find the right size one. So I might make some of those, and just little things around the shop. I want to make a, on your Haas, I think it's on yours, but I know it's an option on most of the Haas's. There's like that little tray that you can hang stuff on, like a hammer and your vice wrench and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to make something similar to that. Like I already made the air gun holder for the brother, but I want to make something for my vice wrench right now.
Okay.
So just little things around the shop, and then home ideas, hangers, cord wraps, simple stuff, but should be fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, for $200, that's gonna pay for itself just in enjoyment.
Yeah, exactly. And like, there's plenty of times where, on the weekend, I don't really want to go down to the shop to prototype something, but I have an idea and I want to like explore it a little bit. And so having this at home will be really nice to just be able to, set it up, get it going, have the day, have it printed over the day, and then be able to see what that idea fleshed out to be.
Yeah, I can't tell you. I know with the type of work you do, it might be a little bit harder, but like, for example, I just got POs for like 4 new parts that I've never made. And like I say all the time, it's like you see in CAD, it says 1.5 inches, but you don't really know what that means until you print out a part and you can really just hold it. And I know for like your stuff, it'd be a little bit difficult because it's like you might not have time for that, or it's just not worth it if it's a one off. But like, with the stuff I do, it's like if they want 50 of them, it's like, okay, I can spend a little time thinking about this. So it's nice to print something, hold it, play with it, kind of think through how you're going to make it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think especially lately, like our stuff has either been fairly big, like way bigger than the printer, or really tiny. And so this
Yeah.
printer wouldn't really be suited to either of those. Like the package I've got to quote tonight, I think everything is 11 or 12 plus inches in
Oh,
length. And so
wow.
like, I'd have to print multiple pieces and glue them together. And like, it's just not worth my time. And then we've done parts recently that are, the middle of them is like 30 thou thick. And, again, just wouldn't make sense. But I could definitely, you've sent me pictures of like models you've printed out, and it definitely kind of helps you wrap your mind around what you're doing.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. It's just really nice and doesn't cost you much and normally can be pretty quick. I mean, it doesn't even need to look good. It's just as long as it shows the features.
Yeah. And so we talked a little bit off air while we were working on some bugs. So you've got the Ultimaker 2 and a Form 2. What made you buy each?
So let me double check real quick. I'm pretty sure I have the two for the Ultimaker because let's see. Yes, I do. So the Ultimaker 2 is one of their more original ones. It wasn't the first one that a lot of people have that kind of looks like kind of DIY. This one's like all white. At the time, it was like $2,500,
Mm-hmm.
which I mean, this is just one reason I love and hate technology. Like your printer you got is probably just as good, if not better, than what I paid for this, which sucks for me. But at
Right.
the time, this was probably 5 years ago. This was one of the best things out there, right?
Yeah, totally. No,
Um,
I'm right there with you. I was one of the original backers of the Form 1. And so like seeing where they've gone now, it's like, ugh, like I want a Form 2 at home. I really wouldn't mind one. I've got one at work that I convinced them to get for fixturing for our CMM, and man, it's just like, yeah, the resin's expensive. Yeah, the ecosystem's kind of restrictive as far as like you are stuck with their resin and all that stuff if you want all the features to work. But I've gone through, I don't know, 3 liters of resin at work and had zero failures, like
yep.
100% success rate.
Yeah.
So, it you pay for what you get for it, or yeah, it's just so dead reliable that sometimes it's nice to just set something up and like, yeah, if it's an 8 hour print, like whatever, I know when 8 hours is done, it's going to be successful. I don't have to worry like, oh, did the filament get caught up in the nozzle, or did it lose a step, or anything like that.
Yeah, and kind of surprisingly, so like the Ultimaker for me has been just that, like totally bulletproof. If I want something that's FDM's the right term, right? Filament or yeah.
Yeah, FDM or FFF,
Yeah.
it's the same
So
thing.
if I want something like that, like just a quick print, a part, like you said, like call it organizers, any of that type of stuff, I just go straight to the Ultimaker. I have settings like I don't even worry about it. Like it just does its thing. And then the Form 2, I got it for prototyping like smaller stuff because of the resolution that thing can have is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, just picture like a Lego sized gun. It's like, I don't know how big this is until I make a mold, but if I can eliminate making a mold and just print one in 3 hours, then I can say, oh yeah, this gun's way too long. Let's edit this, this, and this. Now let's make the mold. That's a huge win for me.
Right. Yeah, I saw you use it recently on your vests that you put on your stories. So I'm sure that that's like really an easy way to do kind of market research too. You print something out, put it on your stories, put it on your page, and see if people bite. And if not, you're like, well, I spent however long modeling it, and then 10 minutes setting up the print, and then I walked away.
Exactly. Yeah. And unfortunately, I have had some issues with mine as far as like print failures and stuff, but I can't say anything bad about their support team. Their support team's been great. I mean, they've replaced whole cartridges of resins multiple times for me just to, make me feel good and that type of thing. And just everything they've done is great. They're totally quick to reply and have a really good technical team. So, even though I have had some issues, I mean, their service makes up for it. So,
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear.
yeah.
So you put here Xometry metal. What's going
Yes.
on?
So, I don't know. Have you ever bought from Xometry for like aluminum or something or any of
I
their materials?
I haven't, no. Um, Really, like, they keep trying to. I don't know. It seems like they email me once a week or once every other day. Um, but for the most part, most of our stuff is such quick turnaround that I can't wait 2 or 3 days for
Yep.
material. Like, a lot of the time, if it's still business hours when I get the quote or I get the approval for the quote, my sales woman at IMS responds within 15, 20 minutes. So I email her immediately and I'm like, hey, this is what I need. She's like, here's the price. Here's the day we can have it, which is usually either same day or the next day. And I'm like, go for it. So usually I can get material in under 24 hours through them. And like, it's definitely more expensive. I've looked at Xometry metals Xometry metals, but they just can't beat them as far as turnaround time.
Yeah. So, I'm kind of the opposite. I don't do such quick turn stuff. Like I said, if I get, five different part numbers, they need 20 of each. Normally, I have like a week or two, so I can afford that time. So, back up. Let's go back a little bit further here. Like a couple months ago, I was like, you know what? Let me at least look because everyone's been talking about it. I've seen it on Instagram and whatever. So I'm like, okay, let me look at this at least. And I was like, I was blown away by the price. Because I normally buy stuff through online metals, and that's already pretty high priced. Um, and I was looking at Xometry, and it was like 3 times cheaper than what I was paying.
Wow.
Plus, I was getting free shipping and normally like 20% off, right? So all that combined, I mean, I was like, yeah, I'll wait like 2 or 3 days. Like that's totally fine, right? But I don't, and honestly, their stuff was great. It came saw cut, no chips in the box, perfect. Everything was stacked, like ready to put in the machine. Like it was perfect, right? But then I don't know what happened. And I saw someone post about this on Facebook, but like recently they just like tripled and 4 times 5x their prices now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's the way that a lot of companies do business now is they
Yeah.
they hook you with really low prices and what seems like really good customer service, and then the second that they are either bleeding money so much that they have to recoup, or they think that they've got enough market share, they immediately start bumping up the price.
Yeah, and it's really disappointing because I was kind of in like I was totally ready to do that switch, but now I go back to like online metals and I'm like, for example, this one little part I'm quoting, it's like I could buy a foot of this material for $1.50 and I only need like 2 inches for the part. So I can make like 6 parts and it's like $1.50. And then I go to Xometry just for one little piece is like $2.50.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm just like, this is ridiculous now. So unfortunately, I think I'm going back to online metals where I'll get like you said, same day or next day delivery. It's a little bit pricey, but I mean, it works.
Yeah. I would look for an IMS near you if they have them, but or like
Okay.
another, because like online metals is as expensive as Xometry was cheap. Like they
Yeah.
are significantly more expensive than my local IMS. And like I'll use them for specialty metals because they have a lot of things in stock, and like all online metals is the online branch of ThyssenKrupp. So
Yeah.
like they have quite a bit of stuff, but yeah, it's I don't know, it's tough sometimes. Material sourcing sucks. Like
It
it's really
really
tough for me to
does.
find Delrin.
Yep.
Like I had a local plastic supplier reach out, and they're like, hey, we can do all your Delrin needs. And like for one order, I needed Delrin, and they were like, well, we have acetyl homopolymer, which is what Delrin is. And then so I bought it. I think that's right. I think homopolymer is Delrin, and then copolymer is the other stuff that now Xometry carries. And then like 2 days later, I reached out and I was like, hey, I need this like really quick turnaround, same thing. And they were like, oh, that's going to be a 7 to 10 day turnaround because we don't stock that locally. Like you were just lucky, and we had some in stock. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm finding another supplier again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I don't know, I never started using Xometry, and maybe this is dumb, but like right when they started it, I had one of their marketing or sales guy reach out and was like, hey, like he called me, like he didn't even email me. He's like, hey, we'd love to earn your business, blah blah blah, like let me know what I can do. And I sent him like an RFQ. I was like, hey, I need this material, what's the quickest turnaround? I was trying to form that personal relationship. If I was going to use a supplier, like I wanted that. And all he did was like email me back, and he's like, well, you can go to our website and press it out yourself, and like whatever it says is our turnaround time. And I was like, okay, I'll just
Okay.
keep talking to my sales woman here because she takes care of me.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like maybe that's a stupid thing to get. I wasn't even really upset, but I was like, oh well, like there's no value added here, and like you're not that much cheaper, so what's the point? It's more of a hassle for me to cultivate a new supplier relationship than just to continue with what I was already doing.
Yeah, like you said, with your tooling and materials, and myself included, if I can support them versus like MSC or something, I much rather do that, even if it's a little bit more. But it's all, everyone looks out for everyone at the end of the day. And if they're just going to send you to like a website or whatnot, and like, I'm not going to pay extra for that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so I don't know. Speaking of suppliers or distributors,
Oh boy, I
I
knew it.
I feel like I should bring this up because for anybody who didn't see it today, Helicool posted on their Instagram like a picture that says "Place your order straight from our website." But if you read on, it's just a shopping cart that sends it to your distributor. And like the funny thing is that within 30 seconds of each other, both you and Sean from Nietzsche Products sent the exact same thing to me because both of you knew that I like if that was true, I would have loved it. But
Well, yeah,
yeah,
because he had sent that to me, and I was confused. Like, what was he sending me? And then he sent a screenshot of your chat, and like, we were all having the same conversation.
I literally copied and pasted what I sent to you to him.
I saw that.
I was like, it's just I don't know, it's frustrating, like it and a little misleading. Like, no, it's not placing an order. Yeah, like I guess I'm technically placing the order through your website, but I still have to wait a day or two for your freaking distributor to get back to me. I've had a few people, and if anybody's listening is looking for a good distributor for Helical, I have had numerous people say that the Butler Bros distributor is fantastic. I still haven't tried them yet, but they have an online shop, and I think I don't know 3 or 4 people that listen to the podcast have all reached out and said, "Go to these guys; they're fantastic."
Okay, that's
So
awesome.
next time I'm looking for helical tools, I'll probably try them out through there. But it's tough. Like I was thinking about it today, a little earlier. It's it's this the convenience. Like sometimes I want to do some end mill shopping at 11 o'clock at night.
Seriously, yeah.
Like maybe I've been thinking about the process all day, and 11 o'clock I get the inspiration like, oh, I can use this end mill instead and save myself this amount of time. And it's like I don't want to wait till tomorrow to order it. I want to get it now. Like I want to get it done while it's fresh in my mind. and get that off of my plate. And so, yeah, I don't know, it's frustrating.
Just an update. Your comment has 6 likes on that post.
So I'm not the only person, pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah, because I don't know, it is just frustrating. Like it's not that's not a completely honest post.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I hate to say it, but I expect better from a company like them.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, they're growing like crazy. I mean, now it's Helical, Harvey, and Micro 100. I can
Yeah.
only imagine that they're going to get more and more pressure to have some kind of online store. Until then, like I said, next time I need to buy some end mills, I'll try Butler Bros and see how everything goes. I'm sure it's not going to be as quick as buying my aluminum end mills through Carbide Cart, because they're right in California, and I think Butler Bros is in, oh, I have no idea, North Carolina or something.
Okay. So kind of
But
opposite sides.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know. We'll see. It's frustrating. It's frustrating, and I've seen the proof. Like they're, at least in stainless, like their end mills work fantastic. And like we've
Yeah.
been switching over to them for aluminum and stainless and titanium at work, and like they work just great. So
Yeah, for aluminum, Helical and AccuPro, that's my thoughts.
yeah, well, and AccuPro is kind of hit and miss for me,
Yeah.
because it's not just the way I've heard it told is that AccuPro is MSC's house brand, and they are not made by one cutter grinder.
That would
So
make a lot of sense.
yeah, and that's why sometimes you'll get one end mill and it'll work amazing, and then you'll get the exact same end mill 3 months later and it'll be terrible.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've had that exact thing.
Yeah, like I know Brad, at his day job, they buy a lot of AccuPro drills, and like they've had some that have come in without heat treat and like have
Oh, jeez.
bent trying to drill their parts, because they do like all stainless, and so like you try to put a high speed or a cobalt drill up against 316 and it's not heat treated, it just bends. And like he sent me a picture and was like, yeah, I don't know what happened.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that meme that you've seen. I hope you've seen where it's like someone 3D printed an end mill as a joke and like it
Yeah.
broke.
I yeah, I kind of wanted to do that. I was like, I don't know if I'm that much of an a-hole, but
Yeah. Hey,
it's pretty
Brad,
funny.
run this new tool. Lightweight edition.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Oh, so little update as far as tooling goes too. I've put in a few of the dual contact holders in the Brother. Nothing big yet, so I can't really attest to any roughing ability, but I can say that like the dual contact on the Brother is awesome so far. Like there's zero difference as far as loading tools go and running them. It's just nice having new tool holders in there too. So I'm really a big fan of like having the spindle wash for the dual contact, so I'm not worried about running a mix of non-dual contact and dual contact holders.
Yeah. A question I had for you that I've never seen anyone talk about. I know for robo drills, how you load tools, you just like clip them in the side. Is that the same with like brothers?
Yeah. There's a half circle holder that kind of goes into the V flange, and then there's a key, and so you make sure that the key's lined up, and you really have to make sure the key's lined up both in robos and brothers, because either A, it'll throw it, or B, it'll get kind of caught up in the mechanism, and I've seen people break one of the tool arms because they loaded the tool incorrectly.
You
And
should
like,
do a story post about that. I'm just curious to see.
all right, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
I've been really meaning to kind of start doing a lot more content, so I I, I need to get on that.
Yeah, just do honestly, I know you've been thinking about like more YouTube and stuff, but honestly, I can't tell you how many people, myself included, would be interested in just you doing like a shop update and just kind of walking around just showing everything.
Yeah, I could definitely do that. It's kind of tight quarters right now for sure. But hopefully, I sent you that picture of the big plate that I just did. I'm hoping that's the last part we do through the kitty. We should have our fixture plate for the Brother in a week or two.
I was
I th-
just going to ask you about that.
yeah, and then once that's here, I can make the new sub plate for the Brother and start doing all of my large plate work in there, because that's really the only reason we're using the kitty right now is larger plate work, because we have that sub plate already set up. But yeah, I'll do a little shop update and kind of show people around the brother control and loading tools and setting them and all that. I really need to do a video on tool breakage detection too, because it's so quick and scary and awesome.
Yeah,
Which I feel
definitely
like
do
are the
that.
3 words I say about everything the brother does, but it's
Pretty
the truth.
much.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of what's on my schedule. As far as the next week, I've got to finish up the replacement heatsink. I've got like 150 of these housings
Oh,
from
wow.
another customer that just need. So they went to a different design for one of their electrical components, which means that now it's bigger, and one of these pockets in these parts, they're already anodized and everything, and some of them even have wires installed. So I need to go through and just recut this pocket, which again, super happy I have it probing for, because
Oh,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I can make a soft jaw and like a stop, but really now I'm still gonna have to make soft jaws just so I don't ding up any of the anodize. But now I'll be able to go in and probe the pocket bottom and then the kind of the contours of that pocket and set my origin perfect. And like everyone should cut perfectly and blend really well and all that stuff.
So, how do you not scratch anodizing? Do you just have to like very light clamping pressure?
Yeah, well, and anodize is like super hard.
Really?
Like even type 2 is fairly hard. Like I mean, if a chip will ding a part, but it'll probably ding the part without scratching the anodize, I would guess.
Okay. I guess
From
I
what I've
haven't
seen.
really played with too many anodized parts.
Yeah, I want to say that even type 2 anodize is like 50 Rockwell or 60 Rockwell or something.
Oh, wow. So it's almost like a case hardening.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy for it. But it's super thin too.
Yeah.
Like type 2 anodize is what, 2 to 4 tenths, I think.
Oh, so that like nothing.
Yeah, so you can ding it. You can ding the aluminum under it, and once you get it scratched a little bit, like you can get under that pretty quickly. But with soft jaws and making sure they're clean, I'm not worried about it at all.
Yeah,
Like
that's gonna be cool.
they kept talking about it and like, well, you can't do this. You can't ding it. I'm like, yeah, have any of your parts come to you with dings in them? Like, it's gonna be okay, I promise. Yeah. So if they could measure the Rockwell, it would be like 70 actually for type 2.
That's a lot.
Yeah, yeah, it's really really hard. Um, so it's you know I'm not too worried about it. Like there's a reason that they use anodize for kind of a wear resistance, and like type 3 is even harder because it's thicker.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm not worried about them. They'll run quick, especially in the brother. I think it should be one contour toolpath, like probing in one contour toolpath. So another brother cycle
Five
time.
second.
Yeah, I mean the probing takes a little longer because there's a lot of weight codes like
Yep.
G4s in the probing routines, and I'm not sure if that's they're Blum or Bloom probing routines, so I'm not sure if that's for controls that can't keep up or if that is necessary. I've been meaning to talk to some of the Amazon techs about that and see why it takes as long as it does, because it seems like we're losing. I mean, we're not losing that much time, but it seems like it could be faster.
Now you're getting greedy.
It's just the pursuit of better always.
Yeah, always. Yep.
Yeah, so that's what's on my plate. I've got those 2 jobs. We just bid out a whole bunch of work too for another supply customer. So I'm waiting to hear back on that, and just getting through it. Oh, and then on top of it, it's what, the 14th now. By the 31st, by the 31st, I have got to finish the design and machining and video for the Saunders Machine Works TIE Fighter Challenge,
That's right.
because we're one of 30 people doing that. And so I've got a rough design already down. I'm going to finalize it this weekend and buy all the hardware that I need and the stock, and then either this weekend or next weekend do all the machining and the filming.
That's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's a fun challenge, and it's been a while since I've participated in a machining challenge. Like Autodesk kind of stopped doing them, and so
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
I'm
That was like many years ago. That one.
yeah, it was 2 years ago.
Okay.
because it was the last IMTS that we won the trip to.
Oh,
So
that's right. Yep.
yeah, so that's yeah, that's what's going on in my world. What about you this week? What do you got in the shop? You're finishing up the molds tomorrow, and then do you have any outside work, or are you focused on the business?
Right now, I just got, like I said, this helicopter part company just came out with a new product literally like this year. I looked at the blueprints and they just released the file. So they want like 5 of each for testing, and then like one part they want 10 of. So like it's only going to be like 20 or 30 parts. So I got to quote those. And then the other local company wants, they're finally sending the 50% down for material for those larger plates, clamshell parts.
Oh, awesome.
So that's going to be, that's like a week long job, which is nice to kind of set up the machine. And 8 hours a day, you're just, every hour you go down there and load up a set of parts, and it runs for 45 minutes, which is nice. um,
Well, and
but then
that's pretty
again,
much
like,
dialed now too, right?
oh yeah, really dialed. And it's it's kind of nice that I'm trying to get all this like mold stuff done now, because once that's running, I don't want to touch it. I want to, just let it do its thing. So that'll tie up my machine for a week, but that'll be good. Um, and then I actually found a new customer. They actually found me, and we're kind of emailing back and forth. This was last week, but I'm waiting for a, let's see, probably tomorrow. I'm hoping he'll send me. He said he was talking to the engineers and was going to get me a bunch of parts to quote. They make like big, other big machines, like one-off machines. Like if they need a machine to, like, I don't know, assemble something or make or rivet something or whatever, they make those custom machines. And so as you expect, there's a lot of one-offs and two-offs on those, and so they need more small shops to do that type of stuff. And he was very nice in his email, that he likes finding the smaller shops to help out because he's got plenty of work to go around and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that'll be a good local customer that I can add kind of to the arsenal.
Awesome. How did he find you? Did you say? I missed that.
So a while back, and I suggest anyone out there, I know the common question is, how do you find work? Post on Facebook Marketplace that you have a machine shop. Yes, you will get a lot of people asking you to make a widget for $20, and you have to weed through those. But I mean, I have had, I would say, 2 successful jobs. They weren't crazy high pay, but I mean, it kept my machine running, so I can't complain there. And then, like, for example, I finding this one, and this is I mean, I bet you this is a definitely multi-million, maybe billion-dollar company that these parts are now for.
Holy cow.
So it's a big player in like the aerospace world, which is cool.
That's awesome, man. Congrats.
Yeah.
See, and I haven't posted on Facebook Marketplace, but we're on Google search.
Okay.
And I don't know about you, but I get calls like it seems like once a week that it's like people trying to get automotive machining done. Like, "Hey,
Yep.
can you do my flywheel or can you machine my brakes?" And I'm like, "No, that's not the kind of shop I am." Like
Yeah.
all it would have taken you is one more click to click on the business and realize that that's not what we do.
Yeah.
So that's I know I shouldn't complain about possible work. Like who knows, one of those guys one day might actually be a real call. But like as of yet, putting my business on Google has just been nothing but endless calls. And like thank goodness I have a business number, because if they were calling my cell phone and like a million people had my cell phone number for car stuff, I would have to get a new number. Like
Yeah, that's another thing is I get people, like you said, that they want like help with car parts, and it's just like, that's just a liability I'm not interested in. Even if it's not like functional, if it's just aesthetic, like, no thank you.
yeah, I mean I'll make like actual car parts. Like I'll make aftermarket cool stuff, and we have
Yeah.
done that, but I'm not going to machine your flywheel. I'm not going to machine your brakes.
Oh yeah,
Like
brakes.
I don't
No.
I don't do any refurbishment. Like there are a few really good talented automotive machine shops in Tucson that I try to steer everybody to because they've helped me out and I want to help them out. But like yeah, it's I've like tried numerous times to reclassify my business on Google just so that it's like prototype machine shop or like aerospace machine shop or like any buzzword that will get these people to realize that I will not do that for them, and it's just no luck. And like I don't know, like maybe I'm just predispositioned to not like those kind of callers, but it seems like many of them are like super rude too. Like
Yeah.
zero, I don't know, like zero, like want to be a good customer. They're just like, hey, can you do this now? And I'm like, no, like definitely
20
not.
bucks sound good. I'll
You're
pick
right,
it up
yeah.
tomorrow.
It's like, no, that's not what we do here. Or like they just, I don't know, they won't understand. Like I'll be like, hey, that's, we do prototype machining. We don't do any stuff. And they're like, well, just do it real quick. Like it's not, it'll be easy. And I'm like,
That
thank
means
you.
it will most definitely not be easy.
Right. Yeah. It's like, no, thank you. Have a great day. Bye. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, I think that's probably a fantastic place to wrap up. um,
We love you, car people.
yeah, I am a big gearhead. I ride motorcycles, I modify my car, all that stuff. I have nothing against car people. I have a big thing against people who just call up the absolute first thing that says machine shop in the title and don't look at it and then yell at me to do work for them. Like that's where I draw the line.
I agree 100%.
So, thanks everybody for listening. Next week we on the podcast, I am super excited because we have Eric from Avant Manufacturing, and I don't know, were you at his meetup? I guess you weren't. So there's a meetup at IMCS 2 years ago that I went to, and I met like a bunch of people there. All the guys from MMM USA, Sean from Rocky's Wire EDM, a whole bunch of people that I met at that thing, and Eric is just such an interesting guy. Like he does some real high level uh, analysis and testing as far as end notes go. And I think a week or so ago he posted clamping his phone into the UMC
Yeah.
that he has so that he could check like jerk acceleration values and stuff and get better cycle time estimations. He went over to NX just so that he had like that very nth degree of control over his tool paths. I think. I mean, that's one of the questions I really want to ask him is what led him there, because I know he kind of bounced around to a few CAD CAM systems for a while. So definitely tune in next week. It should be a great interview. And if you have any questions for him, go over to the post on our Instagram and either DM us or comment there, and we'll make sure to ask Eric that question.
Yeah, and then make sure to follow us within Tolerance Podcast. We're at like over 970 followers, I think.
Yeah, so we are less than 30 away, and then we'll do some stickers and T-shirts. Maybe do a small giveaway, and then we'll have them up. And yeah, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks everybody for joining along on our journey as always, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. See you next week.